Today, I'm going to go over what I usually bring in my pack when I'm leading a Mazama hike, including the 10 essentials and a couple other things. Now, I don't bring every single thing that I'm going to go over today on every single hike. It also depends on the season and the conditions as well. Today, what I'm going to put in my bag is literally what I'm going to bring on my next hike, which is Eagle Creek. It's currently December, which is why I'm wearing my Christmas sweater. And the conditions for this weekend's hike is it's supposed to be raining and cold. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this big heavy duty garbage bag and I'm going to put it inside my pack to line the inside of my pack and keep things dry. Eagle Creek in December is going to be cold and wet. So one thing that I'm going to bring for this season and the first of the 10 essentials that I'm going to talk about is an emergency shelter. For cold, wet Eagle Creek, it's going to be hard if there's an emergency to get rescuers up there. So I'm just going to bring my entire waterproof 4-season tent. It's more than an emergency bivouac, but it only weighs 4 pounds. So if something happens, I'm going to be happy to have this. In addition, since it is going to be so cold this weekend, I'm going to bring my sleeping pad with me just in case. I figure may as well. If it were warmer, I probably wouldn't bring the pad, I'd just bring the tent. The next thing that I bring on every single one of my hikes is a tarp. In the summer, this might be my emergency shelter. I'll bring the tarp with a little bit of rope, and you can hang the tarp up to protect patients from the elements. You can protect yourself from the elements. If there's an emergency, you can also use a tarp as a litter to carry people or supplies, and it can help you keep off wet ground if the ground's wet. So I'm going to bring a tarp too. The next thing that I'm going to pack is a neon green t-shirt. The reason I'm going to bring this is because there's a lot of things you can do with a t-shirt. You can cut it up and use it as flagging if you get lost. You can wave it around as signaling if someone's looking for you. If somebody needs to have a splint and you're out of tape, you can cut this spirally and you can wrap somebody with sticks or a SAM splint and create a splint on their arm. The next thing I'm going to put in my pack is some fire starter. The fire starting materials are in my first aid kit I have, which I'll go over in a minute. I have a lighter, matches, and I also have flint and steel that I'll show you in a minute. But what I'm going to put in my pack right now are cotton balls and Vaseline that I've stuffed into individual cells of an egg carton. This is going to be really easy for starting fires. The next thing we're going to put in my pack is a SAM splint. This weighs almost nothing and takes up almost no space, but again, it can be used in a lot of ways. I can use this to splint someone's arm. I can use it to put a brace around their neck if they fall and hit their head, or if we suspect a spine injury. So I'm going to bring this SAM splint. Hopefully you've noticed that up until now, I've been packing things that I'm most likely not going to take out of my bag at all on the whole trip. And that's what I'd like. I don't want to have to use any of this emergency stuff. It's only there for emergencies. But now I'm going to start packing stuff that I might take out of my bag. So I put the stuff that I'm probably not going to use towards the bottom, and now I'm going to put stuff I probably will use towards the top. The first thing I'm going to put is, since it's going to be cold, I'm going to bring some extra layers. So I'm going to bring a puffy. I might not use the puffy, but maybe I will get a little chilly and have to put the puffy on. It is supposed to rain, so I'm going to be bringing my rain gear with me. Now, as an Oregon rule, if there's clouds in the forecast, this is going in my pack. The next thing I'm going to put in my pack is really important. I'll bring it closer. I have a waterproof folder with notes from my wilderness first aid class that I can reference if an emergency happens. So these are all in laminated pages. And in this waterproof folder, I also bring with me a list of the participants on my hike and their emergency contacts and medical info. I'm going to bring a map of the hike. So this was the map for the last hike I went on. And I'm also going to bring a blank silk note with the Mazama's emergency number written on the bottom of it. That way, in case something happens, I have all of that in the same spot, ready to go, towards the top of my pack. Along with the folder with the map, if I were going somewhere that I wasn't as familiar with, I would probably bring some sort of directions. So there's lots of guidebooks out there. One that I like in particular are William Sullivan's guidebooks. So I would bring something like this if I were going to an unfamiliar place. Next, I would usually pack my poles, but Eagle Creek's flat enough that I don't suspect I'm actually going to use my poles on this hike. So this time I'll be leaving them behind. The last thing that's going to go in the body of my pack is my first aid kit. I'll be going over that in a minute, where I have it laid out and we can see it better on the camera. But that will be the last thing that goes in my body. I always want my first aid kit on the top, so that is the first thing that I pull out. Even my lunch that I'll make tomorrow morning will go underneath the first aid kit. That'll be the second thing down. So that's going to be it for the body of my pack for this trip. Next, I'm going to go over what I put in the brain of my pack. The first thing that I'm going to put in the brain of my pack is my compass. I have a compass with a clear base plate. I got this for $8. If you go to REI or Next Adventure and you look for a new compass, they're going to charge you, I think I've seen them upwards of almost $80. You don't need an $80 compass. I'm going to put one of my light sources in the brain of my pack. You'll see the other one in my first aid kit. Normally, I would put my sunglasses in the brain of the pack, but I don't think it's going to be super sunny, and there's not going to be a lot of snow that'll be reflecting light, so I think I'm going to leave the sunglasses behind this time. Similarly with the sunscreen, I would normally put this in the brain of my pack, but I'm going to be pretty covered and it's going to be pretty cloudy and no snow around us. So I think I'm going to leave the sunscreen behind this time too. I'm going to put a lot of smaller food in the brain of my pack. For example, this would be things like Cliff Bars or Lara bars or chocolate or the snacky type of stuff like that. I'm going to put in the brain of my pack. I'm also going to put one thing from my first aid kit on top of my pack, and those are pads. Because if something happens and I see somebody bleeding, I don't want to have to unclip this and pull my first aid kit out and pull my pads out of my first aid kit. I want to be able to open the brain, grab the pads, put them on the blood. And the last thing I'm going to put in the brain of my pack is my little thing of hand sanitizer. I also put my wallet and my phone in the brain, and I keep my phone in a Ziploc bag in case it gets wet. I don't want that to happen. Next, I have 2 side pockets on my pack, and this is where I'm going to be putting my extra food. For extra food, I like to bring a lot of salty, carby stuff. So things like peanut butter pretzels. I really like Triscuits, the whole wheat Triscuits with salt. I like to bring salty stuff. I'm not going to bring these whole things, but I'm going to pour these into some Tupperware, and I'm going to put these in the sides of my pack for some extra food. As I mentioned earlier, in the morning, I'm going to make a big sandwich for my lunch too. That's going to go in the pack. In the front of my pack, I'm going to be putting my water bladder. I have a 2-liter bladder that I'm going to fill up tomorrow morning with some warm water, and I'm going to put that in the front of my pack. I'm also going to carry extra water. If I had my poles, I would put this in the body of my bag, but tomorrow I'm just going to carry this. I have a 1-liter water bottle that I also carry. That way, if for whatever reason my bladder breaks, I have water in here. If for whatever reason this water spills, I have water in my bladder. And I'll have 3 liters total for Eagle Creek because we're going to be doing a little over 12 miles, so it's going to take most of the day to do that, probably. Now, I like this water bottle in particular because this water bottle comes with some paracord on it. It comes with a whistle on the side right here. It comes with a little compass, but I have my bigger one, so I'm not too worried about that. But my water bottle also comes with a little flint and steel on it, which I have started a fire with before, surprisingly. So the flint and steel is my third fire source, all on this water bottle with my extra water. The other thing that would go in the front of my pack would be my micro spikes. Right now, I don't think I'm going to bring these. If for whatever reason the weather looks like it's going to snow more, then I might throw them in just to be safe. So I'll check the weather again tomorrow. Tomorrow's not a backpack, but if I were backpacking, I've got some sleeping gear and I've got my little pillow that I would pack as well. And obviously, if we're on a climb, I've got my helmet, I've got my harness and my carabiners, my ATC device, and some climbing gloves. The last thing that's going to go on my pack, and will go on my pack for tomorrow, is I'm going to bring a rain cover for my pack since it's going to be raining this weekend. A couple things not in my pack that I'm going to have with me. I'm going to have my base layer with me to stay warm since it's going to be pretty cold tomorrow. I'm going to bring a hat. If it were summer, I'd have my wide brim hat with the little flap behind. But tomorrow I'm going to be breaking my warm hat. And I'm also going to be bringing my warm waterproof gloves tomorrow. Tomorrow the trail's pretty well developed with not too much scree or foliage or snow. But if there were those things, then I would be bringing my gaiters with me too. The last thing that I'm going to talk about is my first aid kit and what I carry in it. So I'm going to go over each item individually. Similarly to the way I pack my pack, I'm going to put the stuff that I'm probably not going to use towards the bottom and the stuff that I want to use more frequently or I would need to get to first in emergency towards the top. The first thing that I'm going to put in my first aid kit, so it's on the bottom, is a flashlight. And this is going to be my second source of light, and I'm going to pack it with some extra batteries just in case. The next thing I'm going to put in my first aid kit are all my pills. So I carry Tylenol, ibuprofen, I carry anti-allergy tablets, hydrocortisone cream, and some Neosporin. The next thing I'm going to put that I'm going to cram into the side is a little mirror that I could possibly use for signaling if in a pinch. So I have matches and something to strike them on. And I also have a lighter itself. Next, I'm going to put in some tape, and this is waterproof tape. So I'm going to put that in the first aid kit. And then I'm going to put in my emergency space blanket. The next thing I'm going to put in my first aid kit is my water filter. That way, if something does happen to our water and we run out and have an emergency, we have a way of getting more water and purifying it. Next thing is moleskin. I always carry a bunch of moleskin with me in the case of blisters. The next thing I'm going to carry is a knife. This is about a 3-inch long knife that I actually found on the ground and was better than mine, so I kept it. The last few things that I'm going to carry are the stuff that I want to be able to get to really fast. So I talked about that I carry the pads in my brain. If someone's bleeding, I can get those really quick and put them on the blood. I also want to be able to get to these pretty quick, these rolls of tape. So I'm going to put these towards the top of my first aid kit. That way we can roll up and tape down those pads if there's bleeding. Similarly, I have a little bit of extra gauze just in case that I'm going to keep near the top of my pack, just in case we need some more. The other thing I'm going to keep near the top of my first aid kit is my inhaler. I have exercise-induced asthma. It hasn't been a problem for years, but I do carry an inhaler still in case I need it or in case somebody else needs it. The last thing I'm going to put in my first aid kit, and it's going to be on the very top, are some gloves. I'm going to put those on top. That way, if I need to do a blood sweep, bam, that's one of the first things out that I can grab, and then I can put my fingers in people's mouths and up and down their arms and legs to look for blood or things like that. The last thing I'm going to talk about is I also carry an instant ice compression pack. This is too big to put in my first aid kit. I also don't want it to get activated by getting wrapped around stuff, so I keep this right next to my first aid kit in my pack. That's everything that I carry in a pack typically when I'm leading a Mazama hike, and if you have any questions, let me know.